Hello everyone, I Harshal Desai welcome you all again after the panel discussion. We now have Mr. Ankeet Bhat, Chief Strategy Officer, MapmyIndia with us, exclusive technology presentation. Thank you. So, would like to tell the audience that in this technology presentation, Mr. Ankeet Bhat, who is Chief Strategy Officer, MapmyIndia, is going to present on maps, Internet of Things, and location artificial intelligence in the BFSI industry. Would like to take a minute to introduce Ankeet to our audience. Ankeet is a strong proponent on how technology can change the lives for the better by increasing human productivity. He takes a deep interest in business that share the same belief. As the Chief Strategy Officer at MapmyIndia, he oversees the creation and leads multiple initiatives around maps, Internet of Things, analytics, and high definition maps and computer vision like artificial. Artificial intelligence in the BFSI industry. Would like to take a minute to introduce Ankeet to our audience. Ankeet is a strong proponent on how technology can change the lives.
So as you become more and more digital, there are a lot of things that can give you an idea of what is around you, whether it's buildings, whether it's demography, whether it's businesses, whether it's something in real time like traffic or people and where they're going. All of this data, as it comes together and is in one place, in one repository, can help us transform and grow our businesses and therefore the entire sector together. So very simple questions like, do you know which clusters are specifically delinquent and if there are specific negative clusters that exist? And as you keep getting more and more requests and leads, where are they coming from? Are they coming from these clusters? And also having clean addresses, right? A lot of the addresses that come in, millions through all the institutions that operate, all of the addresses do not have a clean structure. So what does it take to maintain a clean data lake? How do you have well-structured addresses inside a data lake? And how does that affect your business? So with that, with that background, I kind of go into what we've seen, and I'll start presenting some of the ideas and thoughts that we are encountering in the industry. So this one kind of slide can sum up many different use cases and very interesting ones too. So if you start from the top there, when you see geo CRMs and field systems, so essentially location enabling all your systems, whether it's a CRM, whether it's a collection system, location enabling them to have live location of the task force that's on ground, making sure that you're getting automatic alerts into your central systems when someone is visiting a customer or visiting a place that they're supposed to visit, automatically measuring how much they have traveled and therefore reimbursing them, and kind of planning their beats on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or month-to-month basis, so that it's optimized and people are essentially doing the most amount of work in the least amount of time. So that location enabling of the entire field system is something that we've seen very rapidly grow, and that definitely adds a lot of value and optimization. And we've seen metrics move, by substantial amounts by geo enabling field systems. For and analytics for lending. So if you come to the second one, essentially what we've seen is that as you're getting so much data, you would, through your systems, through location, you would know which clusters are showing delinquent behavior and are showing negative behavior. And essentially, if there are new requests coming into your system from those areas, you can basically know that they're coming from the same clusters and therefore avoid them or charge differential rates because of the fact that it's very high risk. But at least you know that's high risk versus something that's low risk. Also, from a digital onboarding, so you've seen over this last 1 or 2 years, a lot of digital onboarding is growing exponentially. So over video or or different mechanisms, and definitely pulling the location at the time of a digital onboarding gives you a very accurate address, which is through the location of the phone itself. So that also enables very interestingly, you to be able to onboard customers digitally, whether digital KYC or other mechanisms. Even from a geofence marketing perspective, as banks have different retail products like cards, you want to give customers options to pay at outlets and at brands that are closer to them. So we did a large exercise with one of the largest banks in India where all the offers were reallocated basis where their customer densities were, and they saw a very large percentage growth in the amount of transactions that happened between merchants and their cards. So essentially geofence-based or I would say proximity-based marketing is something that we've seen as a large phenomenon that's grown over time. From a vehicular finance perspective, definitely devices are being, like small IoT devices are being embedded into vehicles or even large assets, whether it's like a crane or something like an excavator, anything being financed devices are being installed, IoT devices being installed inside these assets because then the bank knows the location of these assets at all times. And if there is any kind of default, they're able to recover that asset very quickly. And you've seen many live instances of, there being any default and banks being able to recover the vehicular asset itself, and then therefore not becoming an NPA. So we've seen very interesting trends where these devices, their costs are also decreasing. They're becoming so inexpensive that you can easily install them in most vehicular assets that you are lending at some risk. Then from an AI and a BI perspective, so essentially knowing what's changing in the world. So in India, through satellite images, seeing which geographies are showing a lot of growth. And there is a lot of basically new buildings coming up. There's there are just new clusters and communities coming up. And you can see that quarter on quarter, even year on year, and refocus your business in those areas as you're expanding your branches and expanding into different parts of India. And analytics for acquisition also, basically knowing where to set up a branch, where are your customers, are your branches near customers, and when new requests come in for customers, are they being allocated to the nearest branches or not? So these are interesting use cases that we've seen across the industry. So I'll just kind of spin through a few. So like the negative ones that I mentioned to you, creating negative clusters through your own data, and then kind of having every request pass through these clusters and knowing whether incoming requests are coming from these clusters. So that's pretty powerful, and you've seen banks using it, and even NBFCs using it across a variety of products. From an addressing or a smart address and clean address perspective, we've seen these technologies being used all the way from the government, from Ministry of Finance to some of the largest private banks, utilizing these technologies to be able to take any address that comes in and then break the address down smartly into what's the PIN code, house number, state, city, locality, or what have you, and then integrating that into a unified data lake. Similarly, technologies where you could drop a pin and you could know what basically is the PIN code or the locality or the road nearby. And this is especially interesting from a digital KYC perspective, where you're getting basically you're just entering a location and you're able to get on the fly, and these technologies can be integrated on the fly with your own digital KYC systems, where as you're getting a location ping on the fly, you're able to get the exact address. And from today's remote world, I think it becomes even more critical. Yeah, these are some examples where you not only get the city, the district, the state, the PIN, but also the street, locality, the nearest landmark to it, the nearest street to it, and even like a very nice formatted address that your KYC system can have. Then from a field force perspective, I think this is an area where it's not on the front end, but essentially your entire back end can run similar to an Ola or Uber, right? Everything is kind of location based, everything is based on proximity. Everything is kind of automated basis maps and location. So essentially having, knowing the live location of your field force, knowing their beats or their plans, and then after that, even kind of automating their reimbursements, and being able to, integrate that into an entire system, and hosting all of this on your premise also. Also from, like I mentioned, the credit card offers and stuff. So if you're having merchants, which merchants should you tie up with that are closest to your customer base? So just kind of map out all your customers, understand what brands are close to them, and you're able to target those specific brands that are, that are nearby your customer base. Also from just a general acquisition and growth perspective and branch expansion, which are the pin codes that have, the most amount of different types of loan products dispersed from a pin code, or even a more granular perspective, and understanding from different parameters where the penetration is highest. And also basis that, understanding new cities and new territories that you want to enter, or new villages, and which are the areas best to be present in those towns or smaller areas, which have a high affluence and high population and lesser competition, as you can see more other different branches, banks plotted out. Also from an existing catchment, so if you have branches, a branch network, and what is there in that catchment, right? Like what businesses are there, what kind of people live there, what is their affluence, what is the density of roads if it's a village or a very, tier 5 town, what's the competition present in that area from a, primary, secondary and tertiary catchment. So you can have a catchment that goes pretty far wide and understand what exists in those areas. And from like I just mentioned earlier, from a BI perspective, to see satellite images and kind of to understand the change in India quarter by quarter or year on year. So like you see here, the green patches are essentially existing buildings, and red regions are new ones. So which the AI was able to find out that there are new buildings that have come up, and these two images are essentially couple of months old. So that's the interesting bit. And as you see these new patches come up on a larger scale, whether it is all across the state or entire region, you're able to take decisions on where you need to be present with what products. And even from an IoT perspective, this essentially is a technology that can help you see the location of any asset, whether it's a vehicle or even if it's a diesel generator or an excavator, any kind of large asset that you're financing. So that can essentially enable you to know the location, and if there are any defaults in payment or EMIs, you can essentially go and still recover the asset. So that's a little bit about the use cases and about MapmyIndia. We essentially have powered the CoWIN portal. So if you go to the CoWIN portal, you'll see a MapmyIndia widget integrated, which shows the nearby vaccination centers, and this is being used by many people all across the industry. And I just want to quickly wrap up by showing the width of the spectrum we cover across different customers, even at the government, whether it's the center or state level. And that covers my presentation, and I hope some of the ideas and thoughts were interesting. And basically, I'm happy to have chats or answer any questions that the audience might have post this session. Thanks. Harshal, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Ankeet Bhat, for this technology presentation. It was indeed an interesting one. I'm sure the BFSI fraternity was watching us live must have liked this presentation. Even after this conference, if I would like to convey this to the entire all the public, all the audience who are watching us, if you have any question, please let us know. We will be more than happy to connect you with Mr. Ankeet Bhat. And on behalf of Elets Technomedia and the Banking and Finance Post magazine, we thank you, Mr. Ankeet Bhat, for this wonderful presentation.
Thanks a lot, Harshal. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.